On today's video, I'm going to be covering the different essential things that I think are very important for players to know if they want to be able to fly through the ranks in Combat League. So if you're struggling to achieve Elder God and that's one of your goals, this is going to be a perfect video for you. And if you guys are wondering who I even am and should you even take my advice, my name is Rewind and I am a pro MK1 player for Core Gaming. But let's go ahead and get straight into these ranks. As you can see on the screen, we got the different ranks in Combat League from Apprentice all the way through Elder God. And as far as how I'm going to structure this, I'm going to give you advice for every 3 ranks at a time. So as far as for the first batch of advice, it's going to be for Apprentice through Warrior. So let's go ahead and go back to the game. So as far as for going through Apprentice through Warrior, usually these are the very first 3 ranks in Combat League. The players' skill level at these ranks aren't going to be necessarily high unless it was just like the very start of the season and everybody just starts at Apprentice. But typically the players at these ranks are going to be low level, so they're going to not know very much. So in my opinion, the very important top 3 things I think you should know are anti-airs, patience, frame traps, and throwing. And by throwing, I mean using your throw option very often, but you have to instill a good frame trap game because players at these ranks typically don't block. So I'll start with anti-airing. If you guys don't know what anti-airing is essentially somebody just jumping at you and you doing a normal. Let me turn this game down just a little bit. But anti-airing is just an attack that you use simply to get your opponent out there. At these ranks, people do take to the skies quite often, and if you don't have a good anti-air, I would definitely figure out what option your character can do. Most characters universally can just do it down 2 and convert into something. It depends on the cameo you're using. Like for example, Ermac, he can just do something like that into a full combo. But I would recommend you guys figuring out your best anti-air options and your ability to cash out on that, because people at these ranks just hold up for dear life. Secondly, let me get them off this. Secondly, it's very important to be patient on these kind of players, because the players at these ranks, they're just going to do absolutely whatever because they don't know any better. So it's really up to you to just be patient and sniff out the bullshit that they're throwing out on the screen and just, you know, wait for your openings to punish them and counter them for doing so. Because a lot of these players, they don't know frame data. They don't know much. They're kind of just doing things. They don't know the consequences behind their actions. So you just got to make them pay. Another big thing to note is to frame trap a lot. And by frame trapping, if you don't know what frame trapping is, to not give you like a full breakdown on frame trapping, it's just essentially landing any kind of hit. I would say trying to land a poke. Let me just put the frame data on the screen because that'll make things a little easier actually. You know, by frame trapping, it's like landing a poke on hit and then assuring that the follow-up string or normal that you do is lower than the hit advantage of your poke. So if my poke, my down one is 7 frames on startup and my hit advantage is 12 frames, so I'm plus 12 on hit on my down one, I have to make sure that my follow-up that I do after that is lower on startup than the hit advantage. So if my down one is plus 12 on hit, I'm gonna follow it up typically with a stand one, because my stand one is 7 frames on startup. 7 is lower than 12. So that means that if you time it perfectly, the opponent won't be able to block. They'll be able to block if they're choosing to block. But this is what a frame trap is. If somebody, this is also known as jailing. Frame trapping and jailing, kind of the same concept, except the difference between jailing is you can't armor. This is a big thing to know because people that typically play at these ranks, they don't block whatsoever. They're going to be mashing armor. They're going to be mashing holding up. They're just not going to be blocking. So it's important to be able to frame trap your normals so that people aren't able to just squirm out of your offense. And another thing to note that's very important is to throw. You know, you don't want to neglect the throw button. I would say I would stray away from throwing if you should see your opponent isn't blocking very much. But if he is blocking a lot, just throw them. A lot of these people at these ranks don't know how to tech throws. They don't know how to. If you don't know, you have to tech a different way for a back throw than you do for a forward throw. And a lot of these people from Apprentice through Warrior really don't know that. So, you know, throws are kind of free on these people if they're even blocking very much at all. All right, on the screen now we got the next batch of ranks that we're going to cover. I'm going to be covering Champion through Grandmaster. And obviously the skill level between the players, between the 3 ranks individually is gonna differ, of course. You know, there may be people who get stuck at one rank and can get to the next, but for the most part, the players are going to be relatively, the same skill level around these 3 ranks. I would say in this rank, you're just gonna want to be more aggressive. You're gonna want to lay a little bit less off of the patience, because the big thing I said for the first 3 ranks was to be more patient. In this batch of ranks, I'm gonna say be a little bit more aggressive. The reason why I say be a little bit more aggressive is because the players in the first batch of ranks, like Apprentice through Warrior, they're just most of the time just trying to kill themselves, unless they're just a new player who's actually really good that just started the season. Or not a new player, but a player that's good that just started the season. Most of those people at those lower ranks aren't that good. They're just gonna kill themselves. So that's why I said be more patient. But I would say pick up the aggressiveness as you get to Champion through Grandmaster. But you also want to still be kind of careful and look for openings where you can find them. Don't go too ham, because these players are typically gonna actually be able to perform combos, unlike apprentices who are probably most likely just mashing buttons and they don't really know what they're doing. So I would say be a little bit more careful, and minimize the risks that you may take. I would say, yeah, just be more aggressive, but people tend to know combos, so the consequence for making a mistake is going to hurt a little bit more at these ranks. I would say another thing is be careful throwing the players at Champion through Grandmaster. A lot of the players at those ranks, they don't like to hold throws, and I don't think the players at those ranks typically know how to tech all that much. But they definitely are going to start neutral ducking your throws, and they're going to start jumping. So still applying frame traps, and it's going to be very crucial, because a lot of these players, they're going to be very squirmy just like the other ones. The only difference is they're going to be probably a little more nuanced in how they squirm out. They're going to use more options like armor and delay wake up and things like that, whereas the ranks in the top 3, the first ranks that you run into, they're not gonna be so nuanced as far as like how they squirm. They're just gonna not block, they're just gonna hold up. They're not gonna be familiar with armor and delay wake up, and they might fatal blow you, so. But I would say apply the same things that you apply in the first 3 ranks to the second batch, but I would say just be a little bit more careful, because you might get hit for a little bit more damage than you're used to. All right, and as we get to the final 3 ranks, Demi God, God, and Elder God, obviously the skill level between these 3 ranks is going to be the skill gap is going to be a little bit bigger between like a Elder God to a Demi God than it would be from like a Grandmaster to a Champion. So I would say achieving Elder God doesn't mean you're the GOAT or anything. Plenty of players can hit Elder God and still at a competitive level be just decent. But as far as casuals go, hitting Elder God is a very big milestone, because it's not that easy for just anybody to hit Elder God. Obviously for high level competitive players, hitting Elder God is like something you can do in your sleep. But for casuals, this is definitely a grueling process. So typically the players at Elder God, they may not be the best players, but they're definitely pretty good, I would say. These are players that can run into high level players often, so they're going to have that kind of experience, because most of the time the best in the world are already Elder God. So the players who do manage to touch Elder God will be able to get a hold of that kind of experience in playing against that level of play. But I would say, as far as the things that will help you get from Grandmaster to Elder God, or through the Demi God ranks to God to Elder God, is going to be matchup knowledge and playing neutral. These things, if you have great matchup knowledge and you got immaculate neutral, honestly, you will smoke everybody in Combat League every single season and hit Elder God in no time. Because having matchup knowledge and being able to play fundamentally sound and play great neutral and have good anti-airs and have a great grasp of frame traps, and you have good strike throw and you can condition very well, these are the freaking traits of an amazing player. So you're all around gonna have to work on all aspects of yourself as a player to hit Elder God, believe it or not. Because if you don't have great matchup knowledge, and by matchup knowledge I mean knowing the ins and outs of most of the characters on the roster to be able to defeat them, because that's the thing, you're gonna run into Combat League, you're gonna play plenty of characters. Obviously you're gonna see a lot of the common ones, because obviously there are characters that are stronger and heavily picked versus others who aren't so strong and not so picked. But you're gonna need to know a lot of matchups, man, and cameo matchups, because there's a lot of cameos that are getting picked nowadays. It's not like before where there was definitely like a core few of cameos that were chosen. Nowadays in Mortal Kombat 1, there's a lot more viable cameos, so there's going to be a lot of random team combinations that you're going to be exposed to. So having good matchup knowledge and having a strong fundamental base as far as neutral and reactions and a great grasp of frame data is going to help carry you through these ranks. And by the way, this video isn't so much gameplay oriented. I just kind of went into the game real quick to kind of explain anti-airs and frame traps real quick. But a lot of this is really just advice, because a lot of people really don't. They ask me a lot often is like, man, how can I hit Elder God? And it's never really a straightforward answer. You know, to be honest, it is simple. The simple answer to hitting Elder God is becoming a better player. But what entails becoming a better player is pretty much all these things that I kind of named. You have to be able to adapt too, man. There's a lot of different players you run into in Combat League, so you have to be able to adapt to each player. You know, there may be players who never block. There might be players who over block, they over defend. They're hard to open up. There may be players who are super aggressive, super jumpy, super mashy, squirmy. So you have to be able to navigate through all these different kinds of play styles in order to hopefully hit Elder God in a short amount of time too. You know, for some people, hitting Elder God, regardless of if you hit it on the last day of the season, might be all they care about. But then you got some players who can literally hit Elder God in, you know, a matter of a few days if they have the time, you know. So if once you hit Elder God, I would say don't stop working on becoming a better player. At that point, you want to work on minimizing the amount of time it takes you to hit Elder God. And that's going to be a real great way to gauge your progress as a player. But yeah, that is going to be it for the video, guys. And if you guys enjoyed that and you feel like that advice was pretty solid, leave a like on the video, subscribe to Core Gaming's channel, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.